What we are trying to do is unprecedented, right? We are talking about a political revolution.
Bernie Sanders standing his ground as the anti-establishment candidate today after a surprising showing by Joe Biden last night, which has cast some fresh scrutiny on the Democratic Socialist campaign. Washington Post columnist Dana Milbank put it this way, quote, on Super Tuesday, voters across 14 states collectively delivered an emphatic message on the single biggest day of the primary season. They don't want a revolution. They just want to oust Donald Trump. Here now, Marianne Williamson, a former 2020 Democratic presidential candidate who has endorsed Bernie Sanders. Marianne, welcome back. Good to see you this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I want to put this tweet up from President Trump. He said the Democratic establishment came together and crushed Bernie Sanders again. What do you say to that? Do you agree with that?
Well, it's political season, isn't it? The race is on. And Bernie Sanders did not have a great night last night, but there's still a lot of races to go. There are a lot of delegates to get. There are a lot of primary states that are left. So we'll see what happens in the future.
So, I mean, what do you think about this idea that, you know, Americans don't really want a democratic socialist form of government? And Bernie said it again today. You know, he said, Joe Biden and I have very different ways of viewing this country.
Well, you know, I think both political parties are going through a bit of an identity crisis right now. And traditionally, the Democratic Party has always stood on the side of the American worker. You know, there are two ways of looking at things. You can say, serve your economy, you know, help your economy in order to serve your people. And there's another way of looking at things which says help your people in order to serve and invigorate your economy. The Democratic Party has always looked at it where first you serve the people. And so Bernie Sanders is speaking to a slide that has occurred within the Democratic Party over the last few decades where it does have more of a corporatist leaning, where there are factions within the Democratic Party who do give too much subservience, as does the Republican Party, to short-term profit for major corporations as opposed to and at the expense of the American people. So that's what's going on here. That's the contest within the Democratic Party, and I think it's a contest within the American people.
All right. I understand, you know, I think you're right about that perspective on the part of some. Here's James Carville last night sort of assessing the situation of the Democrats. Watch.
We might see Democrats starting to ask Sanders to, look, let's just don't drag this thing out any more than we have to. I mean, people want to get on to the general election. They want to get on to defeating Donald Trump. And I think Sanders' showing tonight made hardly any showing with the African-Americans who are our most loyal constituency and our most exciting new constituency, and that is these educated white women. He showed nothing.
He says, let's don't drag this out any more than we have to, Marianne.
That was outrageous. James Carville, that was outrageous. It was undemocratic. What do you call California, by the way? And, you know, James Carville is a political operative. If Bernie Sanders was his candidate, he'd be saying the opposite. You know, this is America. We let the campaigns happen. We let the primaries happen. And that's what we do here. And we let the people decide. This is way too early to be saying this is over. Yeah. I know that James Carville has his favorite horse in this race, but that was uncool as far as I'm
you're
concerned.
right. Somebody's got to get to 1991, and they're in the 500 range and about 50 delegates apart. So this thing is far from over at this point. That's absolutely true. So, you know, there's reports tonight that the Elizabeth Warren camp and the Bernie Sanders camp are huddling. Now, at this point, that's all we have seen in these reports. So what would you hope would come out of that?
Well, Martha, we're women, we're human beings. This has got to be a difficult moment for Elizabeth Warren. And I think she's a wonderful woman, and she's been involved in a very, very intense, grueling experience. This has got to be painful for her. And I appreciate that Bernie said, let's give her time, let's give her space, and she has to go through what she has to go through and decide according to the dictates of her own conscience. So she knows what the stakes are here. She knows about the moderates who left the race to endorse Biden, and I'm sure there's a lot of pressure on her to do the same for Bernie. But let's always put the humanity of people first and understand that, you know, people have to go through what they have to go through to make the decisions that they make.
And too long ago, they were yelling at each other and calling each other liars on the debate stage. So we'll see how that works out when they huddle together and talk, if they can kind of make up, and we'll see. Maybe they have some kind of plan.
Exactly. We see that in politics all the time. The same people who are saying horrible things about each other the next year, they're like best friends.
You are right. Marianne, thanks. Good to see you as always.
Thank you. You too, Martha. Thank you so much.